Okay, we're on an unlisted private on YouTube.
Okay, it says we're streaming, so we're good to go, right?
Yep, take it away.
Okay. Good day, welcome. Today is February 20th, and welcome to the second half of our virtual meeting. I am your host, George Brooks. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube recording, just want to bring to you our featured speaker at this time, Margaret Martin. However, before we get talking about cleaning out your tech closet, by the way, don't forget, stay for the afterglow. But if you're watching this on the recording, you missed the afterglow because you should have joined us live. But we'll talk about that later. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about who we are. We're the Suburban Chicago Apple Users. We're a group of over 100 individuals located in the Chicagoland area who regularly meet, exchange best practices, tips, offers, ideas, how to keep up to date on your technology, how to save dollars on your technology dollars. And we have a passion for Apple groups, for Apple technology. Please join us at myscau.org and you can join us too and join in the fun. By the way, just want to mention to those who are live, please keep your microphone muted until you're asked to unmute if you want to ask a question. Please submit that question in the chat and we will be directed to, we'll address your question at that time or ask you to unmute. At this time, I'm going to introduce our featured speaker, Margaret Martin. Margaret provides technical support and tutoring on Apple products to individuals and businesses. She's a Mac owner since she has a biochemistry degree, justified her purchase in her Mac SE. Margaret also builds websites for small businesses and nonprofits. She lives in Northeast Illinois with her 2 rescue cats who chew up a lot of things. But at this time, and she also has her own website at bungelowtech.com. At this time, we're going to introduce Margaret Martin to talk about cleaning out your tech closet. Go ahead, Margaret.
All right, good morning here. Let me get set up to share the presentation. Okay, share. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. It's always a bit different what I see versus when I practice. So give me a minute to get set up here so I can see the screen. Okay. As George said, this morning we're talking about cleaning out the tech closet, perhaps getting a jump on your spring cleaning or not. I'm hopefully going to give you some ideas that you may use if you want to tackle this project, or if you don't want to tackle this project, perhaps there will be some ideas to take away certain portions of what we're discussing today. First question is, why are we bothering to do this? There are a lot of reasons you may want to consider cleaning out as a big project. The big ones are making space for your new stuff, making it easier to find parts, and creating and maintaining that stockpile of extra stuff, mostly cables and additional things like that. But those can really help you when you're troubleshooting, or if you just know you need a replacement. If you can quickly find it in your stash of stuff, you're more likely to do that instead of buying a new one. However, there are barriers to cleaning out, as we all know. Time and space are the big ones, but it does take a little bit of effort to gather and to research and decide what to keep. I'm going to talk about those specifically today, as well as the last steps, which are storage, which is up to you, of course. That's a very personal thing, but disposal is something we all have to face and can be a bit more challenging. So I have some resources at the end that I'll go through. But a gentle reminder first, this process is going to look different for everybody. I'm going to walk you through my process today. Don't feel like you have to do it this way. Take as all of it or take little sections of it to make it your own process. So my method has about 7 steps, and this is very reductive. I know it's very straightforward. You can choose to do this all in an afternoon, and that's typically what I do with my clients when they hire me to help them make decisions and clean everything out and specifically decide what to keep. We can usually accomplish it in less than an hour. But you can also break this down and do it over the course of a week. Spend a few minutes each day going through each of these steps. So we're going to walk through each of these in order. First one is setting up your space and gathering your supplies. The only most important thing here is you need a large surface to do the sorting. And I have found that a dining room table that seats about 4 people is a perfect size. If you try to work in a smaller space, it can get really frustrating when you're trying to sort things because everything is in your way. So try to find a big, clear space. You can also work on the floor. Personally, my back doesn't like that, so I like to clear off the dining room table and just set up there. It's also nice to have boxes, perhaps even chewed by cats, as shown in this picture, to use for temporarily holding things when you're sorting them. But you can use laundry baskets, you can use any kind of container, anything you've got around the house, nothing special here. These are some of my favorite supplies that I like to use personally when storing things. A lot of these you'll be familiar with. These are my favorite Velcro wraps, the ones on the right-hand side here with the rainbow colors. They have hook on one side.
Margaret, these aren't showing on the big screen.
Yeah, Margaret, your slides aren't updating.
My slides are not updating at all.
I see space for new toys.
Okay, let me stop and restart or let me pause the share.
Yeah, probably just stop sharing and then start up
And
again.
I started again. Is it still stuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Well, we're on space for new toy. Oh, now we're somewhere.
All right, let me stop the share entirely.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do that.
And
Share it again.
just want to make sure nothing is being blocked. Okay. I'm going to share screen again. Oh, good. Now Keynote, maybe Keynote had a problem because it's not now showing as being able to be shared. Oh, technical issues. Okay.
Aren't they fun?
Aren't they fun? Exactly. Okay.
You know, in the circus, they send in the clowns when this sort of thing happens. So
That was my job.
Okay. Let's give this a try again. I'm in Zoom. When I go to share screen, okay, Keynote is now appearing.
There you go. Let me see it.
So let's see. Okay. All right, so setting up your space and supplies. Now, did you see this slide?
Yes.
Okay, so we've already talked about all this. I'll go through this quickly. You can see the chewed box here at the bottom. And this is the supplies I was trying to show you. Is it still advancing?
Yep.
Okay, great. So the Velcro wraps on the side there, the rainbow colored ones are my favorite kind because they have the hook and loop throughout the whole piece of tape, which means you can also cut them in half and they're still totally usable. The kind of Velcro wraps on the left here only have the loops on a very small portion of them, but if that's all you've got, that's fine. They all work. I will point out this special silver Sharpie, which is great for writing on dark colored things, which you'll see in a moment. But these are 2 items that you may not have seen before. The tape is called gaffer's tape, and it's a special kind of cloth tape that removes cleanly, even if you have it on a surface for months or years at a time, which makes it really great for storage purposes. You can get it in many different colors. I like to buy mine at gafferpower.com, but it is not a brand, it's just a type of tape, so you can buy it at a lot of places. I also really like these rubber-coated twisty wire wraps. They are basically like what we used to get on loaves of bread. They're very flexible wire inside, but they're coated in a thick layer of rubber so it doesn't damage and pinch whatever you're wrapping up. These shown here are called gear ties. They're from a company called Night Eyes. You can buy it from their website directly, or you can also get those and my favorite Velcro wraps at the Container Store. But again, these are just special tools for fun. Use whatever you've got. All right, step 2, gathering your stuff. When I do this with my clients, I really have to push them to gather everything because the whole point is we're trying to review all of the stuff that they want to sort through and possibly get rid of. And when we're doing that, we will find things that we don't know what they belong to. So having everything out on the table can help you figure out what those random chords are for. But again, this is really up to you. I like to pull out anything techie related. So old GPS things, old cell phones, you know, pull it out onto the table so you can sort through it at once. Which brings us to sorting, a third step. These are my cables that I pulled out when I did this process a couple months ago. And the first step is deciding how you're going to sort things. The basic step is like with like, and you can get as detailed or not, depending upon what you are trying to accomplish. For me, when I saw the number of USB cables I had, I realized that I needed to sort them also into categories depending on the type of connectors that were at the other end. So one end is all USB-A, which is up here, and these are the different types of USB-B cables. And I just loosely grouped them together with binder clips to hold them temporarily while I continued sorting. If you are confused about these ends of these different ends and what they're all used for, I've made a little guide or cheat sheet to this, which you can download on my website. I'll show you that at the end if anybody's interested in doing that. It can really help in sorting out because I tried to figure out what these different types of connectors are used for. All right, this is a pile of all of my Apple cables. Obviously, I do Apple tech support. I've got a lot of gear, but I chose to just keep all the Apple cables together because the majority of them are Lightning cables. I did sort a few separate types of cables out using the different colors of Velcro ties here. For example, the ones on the bottom with the red down here, those are the special expensive USB-C cables. So those are easy to see from the pile, but I didn't bother mixing all my cables together. Point is, figure out what you've got and whatever makes sense to you for sorting, that's how you should do it. All right, now the dreaded research, which is figuring out what the heck some of the odd items are. If you're lucky, they will actually have the manufacturer's name written on them, but frequently things like power adapters do not. Sometimes you can figure out, sometimes you can figure out what you've got by searching for the model number. If you can read it here, they're awfully pretty small. And I will be honest, most of the time this doesn't work, but if you can get the model number, quickly type it into a search engine, you might get lucky and figure out who the manufacturer is or what piece of equipment it belongs with. And don't forget, your iPhone has a very good magnifier on it. It works even better than taking a photo of it because it's optimized for helping you read type. Or maybe you've gotten lucky and a past version of you actually labeled things. Wouldn't that be great? For understanding other equipment, especially drives, you might have some luck by looking up their warranties. In fact, looking up their warranties can be faster than digging through your old receipts, trying to figure out when you bought that external drive that's been floating around. The only trick is you have to get to the serial number, which can be painful to read. But for example, on this webpage at Seagate, you can type in a serial number for pretty much any disk, and it will tell you when your warranty expired. So if you know the warranty expired on the you found 7 years ago, you know the disk is at least 7 years old. That might help you in making a decision in the next step. One slight word of warning, you may come across cables that have these lumps on them. These lumps actually contain computer chips, which are an indication that this cable might have some special features. If you come across these, be cautious in getting rid of them until you've identified what they are. They come with printers, sometimes with scanners, sometimes with external drives. They are cheaper than cables that have chips built into the connector itself. It could be on older equipment or less expensive equipment. Just because you have this kind of cable doesn't mean you can't get rid of it. It just means that you have to make sure you do have either another version of it or you actually don't need it any longer. All right, step 4 is the dreaded one, deciding what to keep. People laugh when I say this, but one of the things you should consider is looking at the equipment you're currently using, turning it around or holding a mirror to the back and see what's plugged in back there. Which types of cables, for example, are you actually using now? You have a FireWire connection on your Mac, which is this looking connector here, but nothing's been plugged into it for years, then you probably don't need extra firewire cables. But if you do have something plugged in there, you may want to keep 1 or 2 spares. So that's a quick and easy way to think about some of the extra stuff you find. Another way to do it is to look at the giant pile of things and say, I don't need 6 of each of these types of cables. Maybe I only need 2 for backup purposes. Once you make that decision, then it's pretty easy to take each group, best looking cables, maybe you have a long one and a short one, and then you can get rid of the rest of them. So that's another way to decide. Pick a number and go with it. Or it's completely legitimate to decide to keep everything. To say, I don't want to make a decision. I don't want to do the research. I'm not sure how to. I'm just going to keep everything. And if you do that, I strongly recommend that you put all the things that you don't know about or that you're unsure about together. For example, my bag of stuff that I'm not really sure I should get rid of or keep, but I want to have it around. I put it in its own bag. And if you are really on top of your game, you'll slip a little note inside the bag saying, I don't know what this stuff is, and you'll put the date at the bottom of it. And that will help you in the future. When you find this bag, you'll know immediately what it is, and you'll know the last time you looked at this bag. So if you come across a bag that's got a note from 5 years ago, you might feel more confident at that point in getting rid of it, knowing that you looked at it all those years ago and you never had reason to look at it again. I'm a big fan of labeling things in a way that makes sense to you, not in some generic fashion, but how you need to think about things. I often get asked questions also about really old tech. Do I need to keep it? There's no easy answer here. If you have a use for it, then yes, you should keep it. If you don't really have a use for it, like this floppy drive, say you know you've transferred all your over and you haven't used it in years, then it really is a preferable. Do you feel getting rid of it? How much space do you have to store it, etc. I tend to hang on to things a lot more than regular people do because I do tech support for a living, but there's no easy answer on this. It's certainly not bad to hang on to these things, but also it is kind of a pain in the neck to just keep them stored when you're trying to find the stuff that you really need to get to. Which brings us to storage. Here's how I use some of the twisty wire wraps. I like these because they're quick and easy and they stay out, and it's a thing I don't use frequently. So I can just toss this mouse into a drawer. It's not going to get tangled up with anything. And because I'm not using Velcro in this case, this Velcro isn't going to stick to other Velcro in the same container. That's the one downside of using Velcro. Well, that and the amount of cat fur that it collects. Another way to store things is to put like items together and put them in a bag. I like bags a lot better than boxes because they collapse and take the space. I don't frequently seal the bags completely. They don't need to be airtight, and that can lead to moisture problems. If moisture gets in there, it's hard for it to evaporate. But any kind of bag will do. This was just a repurposed shipping bag that I put the charger and lightning cable from a new purchase in. I don't need any more of these floating around, but I wanted to keep them in case I ever pass along the iPad mini to somebody else. So I kept them together, I put them in a bag, and crucially slipped what it was and a little reminder of how I think about this device. You'll notice that I didn't put the model of the iPad mini because honestly, I don't remember which one it is, but I know that I purchased it in 2020. So that's what I wrote on the note for storing this when I need to. Here's the silver Sharpie. All right, I'm getting a note that my internet connection is unstable. Are we still advancing slides?
Yes. But
You're
your sound
advancing
is
slides.
fading in and out.
Yeah, just every once in a while,
Okay.
you're a little gargle, but other than that, you're fine.
Okay, well, we're at the mercy of Comcast here. I'm as wired up as I can be. So if it becomes a real problem, just reach out and let me know. All right, silver Sharpie is great for writing on transformers. I try to do this every time. I'm not always great about it, but it's fast. You can just keep the Sharpie with your regular pens, so it's really easy to grab quickly. You can get fancier and get yourself a labeler if that's your jam. Certainly, I do like the fact that you can get very high contrast labels written with this, which makes them, it's easier to put small type on things and still make it readable, unlike the Sharpie, which is only really good for writing large on the items. So for example, labeling external disks, it's very smart to label the disk itself. As you can see here, I've labeled it on the top where I can tell immediately that's one of my clone drives, but it's even smarter to put a label on the bottom telling me when I put this drive into service. Now, I tend to buy quite a few drives because of work. So I can't just easily go look at my records to figure out when I purchased a drive and when I started using it, because I may have purchased it 6 months before I started using it. So I use the words in service, but the date is the critical thing. Having that somewhere will help you in the future decide when it's time to rotate out an external drive, for example. I don't usually label cables, but occasionally I will. If they're special cables and they have a very unique purpose, or they look like something like a lot of other cables and will get mixed up with them, I will label that one. And you can see this one, you can almost read it. It's for charging a particular device that for whatever reason will only work with this specific USB cable. I finally got so tired of struggling with this. I reached out to the tech support, figured out what the problem was, found this cable and labeled it specifically. It's only going to be used for charging this. It's never going to be plugged in somewhere else where I can't get at it. I wanted to share my favorite storage for cables, especially if you're on the go or you don't have a huge quantity of them. This is the Snake Charmer bag from Tom Vin. It is a double-sided bag that is just beautifully designed. It's stiff, but not too stiff. It's flexible, but not too flexible. It's got great zippers. It works wonderfully for corralling all the little loose bits and adapters. I have used this particular bag for over 10 years. It goes with me on every client hardware repair trip that I take, and it's still in great shape. It also has a couple of different hooks on it, so it's really easy to hang up in a closet, but it also just can be tossed in a drawer. All right, this brings us to the final stage, disposing of things, the stuff that you're not going to keep. And the real bugbear, which is data destruction. So often we end up hanging on to external drives and sometimes even whole computers because there's important data on there, and we're worried about just putting it into the hands of somebody else without knowing that that data is actually inaccessible to other people. Doing it yourself is easy for some types of media, floppy disks, DVDs, etc. It's much harder for hard disks and SSDs. Most home shredders these days can take care of CDs and DVDs, but for anything more rigid, you're on your own at that point. So most of us turn to data destruction services. The problem with a lot of these is that their services are for businesses. They're not for consumers because they're dealing with large quantities. There are mail-in services that can be much more flexible. And the only problem with them is that you have to pay to ship it as well. So I did some research over the last couple of weeks to try to find some resources or places for you to begin. I'm going to be showing you a bunch of links. These are all posted on the discussion forum for our group. They're also on my website, which I will show you at the end. So don't feel like you have to do screen grabs or anything as I'm going through all of these. The first one I just want to highlight because it's the National Association for these types of companies, and they have a great search engine, which is where I found these two, Shred Authority and ProShred. Other people have recommended these services to me as well. It's not clear if they work with consumers for electronic waste. So I'm not saying that all of these are a solution for you, but these are places to start reaching out to for research. If you want something local, these are the two places I would start. If you are thinking mailing in is probably a better solution for you, these are a number of programs that I have found that do explicitly state they will take consumer waste. I have used the first one on this list, Green Disk. I have used Green Disk many times in the past. They're one of the oldest ones that I know of. They're out on the West Coast, and they will take virtually any type of electronic waste. and they have a number of different programs for shipping your stuff to them for destruction. Recycling, of course, is an important part of getting rid of electronic waste. In Illinois, we've already paid for this through our taxes. So that's your first protocol when you're getting rid of this kind of stuff. And it's all controlled in Illinois, outside of Chicago, by the county governments, which can make it really hard to track down the information. Here are all the links for the groups that I could find that would cover most of our local people here. Don't worry about writing down these links. I have them all on the community forums, and I have them on my website as well. You'll notice that some of the solid waste programs are under strange departments like health departments. Other places have their own websites. So it can be a little tricky to find out what exactly your county offers. That's why I put this together. I want to highlight, though, this first one. Where do I recycle this? The Solid Waste Agency of Lake County has a wonderful directory on their website that talks about recycling all sorts of different things. So if you go to their website, this is their homepage, there's a button down here I've circled in red. Where do I recycle this? Clicking on that takes you to their database, where you can not only look up different recycling companies, but you can search under their category listing. And I've did a screen grab here to show you how incredibly detailed their categories are. This is a wonderful resource when you're cleaning out just other things as well as electronics. I have found that a lot of places would have limits on what they will accept, and certain things you want to get rid of can be really hard to find a place that will take it. So I just wanted to share this as part of my research. CDs and DVDs sometimes are accepted and sometimes are not. You certainly in Lake County cannot put them with your regular plastic waste. I mean, you can, but they will just be thrown out. They will not be recycled properly. I recently, however, found a place online that I'm excited to try called Back to the Future, which offers free DVD and CD recycling. They have a dedicated machine for this, which means that this is going to be the highest quality recycling, and you don't pay for it. You do have to pay to ship your items to them, but you don't have to pay for the recycling, which is great because I've got a huge stack of Microsoft Office disks that have been lying around waiting for me to get rid of them appropriately. And now I have a place to do that. This link is also on our community forums and on my website. One final thing about disposing of stuff is beware of tanglers. If you are getting rid of cords and cables, they can't go with the regular electronics recycling because they will get caught in the machinery. They need to be separated out. I usually just put them in their own box, so the people who are emptying out and sorting the stuff at the electronic waste pickup can just grab the entire box and dump it out into their equipment. If you see a place that is not separating the tanglers, there's a good chance all that stuff is just going to get thrown away because they are not actually going to recycle that kind of stuff. Most places don't require you to take the electric cord off of items anymore, but you certainly can cut it off if you've got strong enough hands and good wire cutters to actually cut the cable off if it doesn't separately detach. Most places are set up though to process the stuff and cut it on site. Before you go to your local county electronics drop off, please check their open hours. I noticed a lot of them had changed because of the pandemic. Most of them are open again, but the hours may have changed and they may have different procedures now. Also, please tape over the battery terminals to prevent fires. Fires are a big problem for electronics recycling facilities. They happen all the time because a lot of these batteries end up damaged. So you can help by taping over the terminals. And that tape that I mentioned at the beginning, the cloth gaffer tape, is great for this because it sticks really well, but it's still very flexible. It makes it really easy to tape the terminals. Obviously, separate tanglers, which I mentioned. And if you're doing this out of your trunk, like most places require, if your trunk isn't empty, make sure you clearly identify the recyclables. There's nothing worse than getting home and opening up your trunk and realizing that the people forgot to take one box out of your trunk. And now you have to go back the next week when they're open again. So, as I mentioned, I have all of this on my website. I'm going to briefly show you, if this will work, where you can find it. And I want to show you what this USB connector looks like. Okay, I need to change my sharing in order to do that. I think, let's see, desktop.
While you're doing that, Margaret, I just want to bring up some of the things that individuals stated in the chat. And one of them is that somebody said that they use clear shoe boxes. Also, somebody asked about videotape recycling. I gave them a response of a wide variety of the places you mentioned actually do videotape recycling. Also, the city of Chicago, for those individuals who are in Chicago, you can actually Google on the city's website, there is recycling of different things in the city that the city provides, as well as those of you who are outside the city, preferably those people in Florida, just check your local municipalities, because most of this is a really big thing as far as recycling of different things. And you'd be surprised, Best Buy and Staples and Office Depot, Office Max, a lot of them do recycling also.
Yes, and sometimes they will take things that your county will not take, which is great. And, you know, a lot of us aren't going out as much as we used to, but definitely it's convenient if you're already going to Best Buy to drop off your batteries there, for example.
Yeah. And also don't forget that you can actually donate these cables if they're still usable to the Salvation Army, because, hey, they actually can sell them to fund their programs or goodwill.
That's true. That's very true. All right, I'll just quickly show you on my website. This is the homepage. If you go to the Help Yourself section on the menu and scroll down to Cleaning Out, that link takes you to a page where I've put up all these links where you can click on them and it'll take you directly there. So I hope that's useful if you're going to do some research and figure out where you may want to pull it out, send your stuff or drop off your stuff. You can also download the slides. I turn them into a PDF if you want it written out and don't want to have to keep using the web. And the USB explainer is right here on the right. The green button, get the free PDF in Safari anyway, we'll open it in Safari. And I just made a quick guide here that shows you all the different types of USB connections that you may have in your lovely collection, because I know we all have seen these weird things, what they're typically used for, and the speeds that they carry. So you might decide to get rid of older, slower cables, etc. Just a quick explainer. This is a PDF that you can keep on your computer to use to refer to anything you would like to use it in the future for. And the community, let's see. No, that's the Slack. To our community here. I had it up earlier. Of course, it closed.
It starts with community.
Yeah, I always forget how it begins. All right. This is our community here, and it's at the top because I just posted it today. I put it under hardware, tech, trash, recycling, and data destruction links. So this is everything that I talked about today, but please, if you have other places that you have used, reply to this thread. Let's build up something that people have actually tested out and know work for them or don't work for them, good and bad. Either way, we'd like to hear about it. And certainly I would like to hear about it too, because these things are constantly changing and closing and opening. All right, do we have any other questions that I should go through?
I just want to mention that the city of Chicago actually takes tube televisions, which is shocking.
That's great. A lot of places now want you to pay for that.
Right, exactly. You just drive up. And I was really shocked because when I dropped some stuff out, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I will say it. They didn't ask for any ID to say that you were actually a city, that you're a resident of the city. It's located on Diversity. You can actually Google it to bring up the information. So.
Mount Prospect actually has like a recycling once a month on Wednesdays. You can bring it over to Public Works, and they take tube TVs.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, ours used to, but they closed the Public Works at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's still closed. So we have nothing in our community. So I'm hoping that stuff will reopen at some point, but I was surprised at how much more limited it had recently become. So
and like you said, the city of Chicago's, it's put it in the passenger seat and roll down the window. They grab it, or in the trunk, because it is, like you said, the no contact.
Yeah,
I know that's with the city of Chicago.
If you go to Lake County, it's even worse. It's trunk only, which
Oh.
messed me up because I had so much stuff. I had a bunch in the back seat as well. So I had to like go find a place after they unloaded the trunk. I had to go find a place away from everybody else, unload back into the trunk and drive through the whole service again.
Well, hey, I get. Remember, it's all about the COVID and staying safe. So
Exactly.
True.
Unfortunately, that wasn't on their website before I went. Otherwise, I would have made a much larger pile in the trunk. But do your best. Try and find out what the procedures are before you head out.
Margaret,
I will say that if you come across any weird cables or weird power things, I'm always up to doing a little research. So send me photographs of it. That's a free service. Just email me with some stuff and as many photos as you can, and I will help you try and figure out what the heck this thing might be.
Yeah, that's a great little guide you put together with the USB. I've always, for years, you Google that stuff, try to find the information, and people have all kinds of crazy pictures of everything. I mean, I know that. I mean, you forget. I know what the plugs are because I'm like you. I have like a box load of cables of every different type, and you forget because especially with USB in the USB 2, USB 3, and now USB 4, it's just changing on a constant level, and that's a great. I really commend you on that guide. It's really nice.
Well,
I have a
share it
couple.
around.
I've got a couple additional organizational hints. The little tabs that you get on your bread bags, the little plastic tabs, if you take those off, you can put those on your cables and you can write on the backside of the tabs what the cables are. So
Yeah.
you got your power block, you got 15 different power cords. You don't know where the power cords go and what it's to. You just write on the little tab, stick it on the power cord. Another thing is that when you get all your cables organized, you can get one of those over-the-door plastic shoe holders for the backside of a closet door, and they've got all the slots for the shoes. You could put your bags of cables into those slots.
Oh, that's
Organized.
a good one, Jeff. That's really good.
That's dedication.
Yeah,
But now, at a certain point, we need to learn to let things go.
I'm looking over my closet. I probably need to do that too.
Well, when
And by the way, after this meeting is a good time to go out to the website or go out to the community and actually look at these things and go out to Margaret's website. And hey, we got Saturday. It's cold here in Illinois today. So it's a good time to actually put some of these things into practice in place.
Well, another thing with the thing that hangs over the closet door, if you go to move, you unhook it from the closet door, roll it up, put it in a box, ship it where you're going, and you hang it back on the door. It's all organized and ready to go.
Okay, so Margaret, was there anything else
I'm done with my talk here. Like I said, send me your wacky photos. I'm always interested to see what people have. I mean, I've had to dig deep on some things, but the key, I would say, if you come across weird stuff is, boy, try your hardest to figure out what it connects with, because that'll tell you what that odd cable is that's been floating around. It's much easier to sort it out if you can plug it in somewhere else. But send me photos. I'm always interested in researching, and I hope that USB thing, at least gets you started in sort of understanding all those different USB connectors, because my goodness, I spent a lot of time on Wikipedia reading about that. It is much more complicated than we give it credit for. And with the coming switch to USB-C versus Thunderbolt, I did touch on that briefly in the little handout. That's going to add another layer of confusion and complexity to this issue. I think maybe at some point we need to talk about that in the future with this group.
Now we got a little extra time. I actually can talk about that. I probably have mentioned this device before. I just got this device here. This is a OWC Thunderbolt hub, and this is the USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 hub, and it has all the USB-C connectors and Thunderbolt connectors, and they all are powered. So you can plug in any powered devices as well as non-powered devices, and it also has the USB-A on the front here. So that's a big thing. And then OWC also, they just put it on their website yesterday. I got a notification of it. They have a cable. It's looks like a USB-C cable, but the cable itself has a lightning on it, and that means it's a powered cable. So that means the cable itself can see if I got the cable here. The power itself can it can now power things. I think if anybody can see that on my camera here, see that plug's got the little lightning on it. So that also, these are new cables now, and that cable that they're selling for, I think it's $28. Now a little pricey for a cable, but it's universal. That means it can be used for basically anything that has a USB-C type connector like this does. Yeah, it's just, I agree with you. It's just crazy to have to keep up with all the cables, the things that have been changing. But I'm glad to see this, because that means that in the future, everything in the future is becoming more and more universal, which is really good, because that's where the confusion was. You have FireWire and FireWire 400, FireWire 800, and then you had the USB 2, USB 3, and then, is this a USB 3 cable? You look at the USB cables, and then, the USB 3 cables are blue inside, but the USB 2 cables are white inside. So I'm glad to see it. It's a little more universal, but the problem is you see these kind of cables with this kind of connector, you don't know, because it's not going to work. I mean, the power cable that comes with a Mac, I mean, that is a cable for power, but do you really know? So this is at the end of an end of a cable for a Mac, but then they also have a thinner cable. If you look at the cable, it's thinner, and that's just a data cable. That's not a power cable. So how do you know that? But that's what I think that I mean, I've talked to I actually went to when I was at CES last year when we were in person in 2020, I actually went to a cable consortium. They actually were talking about this, and trying to standardize cables has been a bit of a challenge. But having that on the cable with the lightning at least gives you a good identifier to know that this is a power cable. Apple doesn't even do that. So
at least
that logo is the Thunderbolt logo.
Thunderbolt, right? That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I just brought it up and shared it on the screen there.
But even more importantly, it has the 4 on it. That's the other thing, because the standards are increasing. So is this a Thunderbolt 2 cable? Is it a Thunderbolt 3 cable? Is it a Thunderbolt? Right. Apple has nothing. They have the gray type on the white cable, and it's so small that often, I mean, I can't read it. And I love the simplicity of Apple stuff, but sometimes it drives me crazy with these Thunderbolt cables flopping around, and I don't know which is which. And
OWC is great.
Yeah, I actually have it up here on the screen about OWC, and as you see here with their cables and how theirs are nicely marked.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bob.
The one thing to remember, even on Thunderbolt 4, there are issues with cable length on Thunderbolt 4, and I don't know if the new ones do it, but if you're running video over Thunderbolt 4, only the shorter ones will do that. I ran into that just the other day by accident. So you have to be real careful if you're running video over them too. It's nuts.
Yeah, but at least it's somewhat more standardized as far as the types of cables there are. Yeah, compared back in the old days. But there's still a lot of devices out there using the old days stuff. So, yep.
Okie dokie. Well, appreciate, Margaret, all of your information that you gave about getting us a little bit more green and clean, and also clean out our closets and getting rid of stuff. By the way, one thing that I want to mention, if you're, as far as a computer, if you're getting rid of a computer, if you can take the hard drive out, or send it to someone who is actually certified to destroy it. And if you're actually mailing it to someone, make sure you send that computer by a trackable, traceable method. In other words, you have a tracking number. So when it gets from you to the person where it's going to be destroyed. Because if something happens in between, you want to make sure that you can actually track down where it is or where it went. Because remember, your data's on that device. And I will really suggest that if you're trying to get rid of a computer that has data on it, you take it somewhere local where you can hand it to somebody and they do the destruction.
I will say some of the mail-in places will send you secure shipping containers.
Right.
I can't speak to how good they are, but I mean, they are definitely aware of the transit problem, which is not insurmountable. I mean, it's legit. And somebody in the chat mentioned that Apple will definitely take your old gear and recycle it. I have good faith that Apple's recycling is appropriate. Mm-hmm. And I have trusted them in the past with the hard drives that are in there. I'm not taking my Apple gear apart. If I send it back to Apple, I trust that they will handle it. Yeah. But your mileage may differ.
Yeah, and that is one nice thing that you definitely know by taking it to Apple. We all feel that we know how Apple is about privacy, that they will handle it appropriately. That's probably the better place to actually take it, in my opinion. Thank you again, Margaret.
There was a question in the chat there. I don't know if you addressed from Elda.
Margaret, I just wondered if you had any thoughts about how long you keep old computers. Like after you've transferred the data, I usually keep it around for a while thinking maybe I missed something, but I tend not to throw things out. So
yeah, it's sort of a constant battle of, how comfortable you are with letting it go, how comfortable you are with the new setup. I tend to get rid of the hardware as soon as possible because I live in a small house, but I'd like to keep the data around. So for example, a Mac, I will just clone it onto an external hard drive, knowing that I can go back to that clone. And if I have missed something in the transfer, the data is there. For older systems that I might want to keep around because of access, like if we're making a big shift in operating systems, then I might be tempted to keep the older computer around longer because there may be some wrinkles in the new equipment. For example, 64-bit apps, are only running on Catalina and more modern systems, but you may not really discover that you have a faithful 32-bit app that you need to run until several months later. So it kind of also depends on how many operating systems you're jumping and if there was a big shift between your old and your new equipment. So really old stuff, in a way, I almost want to hang on to it a little bit longer because I know it's going to be a really big shift to the new stuff. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's sort of how I think about it. But yeah, I know that a lot of people have a hard time getting rid of it because they're nervous and they're used to the old thing. So a lot of it just comes down to comfort and how much space you've got.
yeah, like I've got an old desktop Mac that I've still kept because I have a copy of Adobe Creative Suite on it back when it was, installed on your machine. And I don't have that anymore. I don't subscribe to it. So occasionally I still want to go back and use it for design stuff. So it's just sitting there.
I'd like to point out that a lot of your old Mac equipment or Mac, any kind of Apple equipment is still a lot of value for a lot of people. There's collectors out there that love to collect this stuff and are always looking for older equipment. So instead of maybe disposing of it, if you wanted to go to somebody who's going to make use of it, you could either give it away for free or sell it. Now, there's a place on Facebook called Apple Macintosh Vintage for Sale or Buy. Just look that up. It's very easy. I've gotten rid of a lot of my old stuff. I get $100 here, $50 there. It all adds up. And it's not being thrown into a landfill.
Jeff, if you could actually post that in the community, because that sounds like a very good resource. We'd appreciate that.
I will.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Margaret and everyone for all of your thoughts and your presentation. At this time, what I'm going to do is actually, in honor of Black History Month, I would like to actually bring up this organization. It's called BDPA. BDPA is an organization of African-American IT professionals. I am a part of this organization. I have been a president of one of the chapters. This organization actually takes individuals who are of African-American descent and professionals and takes them from the classroom to the boardroom in the IT industry. They actually have high school computer competitions in honor of Black History Month. I just wanted to bring this up. I've been a member of this organization in numerous chapters across the country. There is a chapter here in the Chicagoland area. I would suggest that everyone try to support this organization. They provide scholarship money as well as professional training for adults and students alike. Just want to bring up at this time, don't forget our website has been redesigned. Please don't hesitate to take a look at our new website and join us on our community. For those of you who are not members, please join us here on this website. And you can click right there where it says for non-members and join us at myscau.org. Just want to let you know of our upcoming meetings. Believe it or not, this is the last meeting for February because March is around the corner. Our next main meeting will be on March the 6th. We have our iOS meeting that will be on the March the 10th, and we have the photo SIG on St. Patrick's Day, March the 17th. Again, please join us for all of our upcoming meetings. And I want to thank you for those of you who attended live and those of you who are watching the recording. Please join us live again on those dates that I just mentioned.